Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the CSFL Kick Off Show. We're back today with a different kind of episode, and we have a multitude of guests on the show. As you can probably see from the screen, we are looking at CSFL ring tiers. And to introduce this to the audience is a new guest on the show, Robbie, the assistant GM of the Detroit Lions. I guess long-time listener, first time on the show. Do you want to introduce the purpose of this tiers and take us through?
Yeah, well, basically we're still early in the season, so we all have this discussion anyway as to who's likely to win a ring and who's not. So rather than separate who's better than who, we'd start off by looking at which is the most likely team to go for a ring, and that includes which division they're in, who they might have to face in the playoffs, and overall what their road to a potential ring might be. So that's the initial thought. And Chris? So we'll start off with the Patriots. The Patriots are in their own division. Losing Wilson kind of sucks, so it's that simple. But not only because they are down an elite quarterback, they also can't practice and test their playbook with Russell at the helm. Rizzo will struggle to navigate the lack of a QB, and I don't think their playbook will be good enough for anything further than possibly making it into the playoffs. Right. This division doesn't necessarily mean that these teams are not good. It just means that their road to the to a ring is very difficult. All of these teams are not necessarily bad. They could make it into the playoffs and hence have a chance if they were in a different division. The Bills continue to get better from their 0-16 season a few seasons ago, but they are still a distance away from winning the division and hence possibly going for a ring. The Bears and Vikings need to find a way to get into 13 or more wins, as this is a number that the NFC North has been won by every single season. 2010, 11, and 12 has seen the division being won by 13 wins. Last season it was won by 15. I don't think they can do that this season because that would require one of the two teams to go 12-1 from now until the end of the season, something that I'm not so sure they're able to do because they don't have very easy schedules. The Bengals and the Steelers, similar lines to the Bears and the Vikings, because they have to get through the Ravens for a start, and considering they've also already put up 2 losses, that means they both need to go through 11-2 season to the end of the season. That's not very likely as well. The Texans are probably the most difficult one of those teams to predict, simply because they have to go through the 2-time champs and possibly 2 more top 10 teams in the Colts and the Jaguars. And finally, the Chargers are in this tier simply because, sure, their offense can be good with the Jacksons and Rivers. However, their leaky defense will possibly result them in being a bottom 3 to 4 team in the AFC. So these teams, in normal situation, we would have grouped all of these two tiers together. They're not necessarily better; they just have easier potential routes because they don't have the likes of the Lions, the Packers, the Titans, the Ravens in their path to get to the playoffs. All of these teams are easily 1 or 2 win swings from being able to win their division and enter the playoffs. Because most of these, the NFC East and the South has been won by 10 or 11 wins, so something that all of these teams can possibly achieve to do. Right. Now we're starting to get into the interesting situations because all of these teams are flawed but dangerous, or they have a new GM. Each one of these teams has something about them that you think possibly they could do something. But at the same time, all of them have major flaws about them as well. Arizona, possibly the best receiving core in the league, but a new GM who we don't know how he can manage the team yet. The Browns, sort of the opposite of the Cardinals. They have a veteran GM with a kind of competent roster, but Vigorilla does like ending a season with no more than 8 wins, so I'm not sure they can go too much further than that. The Chiefs have a receiving core that can also threaten whoever they play against with Mo Ayaki and Antonio Brown, but at the same time, they have far too many players earning far too much money than what they should be making, except for the rookie contracts, and hence they are lacking in players that they could be fielding elsewhere if they had more manageable contracts. The Dolphins have Jamal Charles, and that's all that team really needs, considering that he's already averaging 150 yards per game. However, two of those games that they've won on their path to 3-0 has been against the Patriots, who, as we can see, is on a tier of their own. The Saints proved last season under Rouse that even if Rouse was AFK, that running game and that offensive line is probably one of the best in the league. But Regan needs to discover whatever it was that Rouse was running to help them click. The Raiders, possibly Peyton and Lynch is one of the best quarterback/running back combinations in the league. However, their defense is weak. They have no receivers of note, and they have a new and untested general manager in J-Ron. They've started the season well. Not sure they can go too much further right now. If they can start to find a way to get 70, 75 rated players into performing like 85 rated players, then that can be a different discussion. The Bucks are in a division they can win, considering the most likely team to win that division is the Panthers, who have also not done it in the past. But possibly this might be 1 year too soon for them. Now we have the teams that we expect to make I expect to make the playoffs, but not necessarily will go any further than that. The Panthers don't have a receiver that would concern a playoff team, but they should be winning their division. Then the question is if their players would be allowed out of their care homes for the postseason, or if they would be under lockdown situation. The Cowboys have come out of the gates flying, but I don't feel they have enough to topple the Giants, so it's a wild card for them, which would result in them facing possibly the Packers or whoever is the runner-up in the NFC North. The Giants have won the NFC East 2 times in the last 4 seasons, so I expect them to make that a 3rd division title, giving them a potential game in the wild card that they could be winning against another NFC East team. But if they're unlucky enough to draw the Packers or the Lions, that could be an early exit for them. The Jets have started with a top 5 offense, but a bottom 7 defense. I expect this trend to continue, much like the Colts. And as history suggests, you can't challenge with a bottom half defense, never mind a bottom 10 one. I think I skipped the Colts. Yeah, I did skip the Colts by mistake. The Colts are basically, they have one of the best offenses in the league. Simple as that, if they decide to turn up. However, at the same time, they could be scoring 50. They can also be conceding 60 at any moment in time. Their problem is that they will face defenses that simply don't allow 20, 25 points against them in the Jaguars, the Titans, the Ravens, etc. Speaking of the Jaguars, they find themselves in a tier with the Broncos. These two teams need things to go right for them. They're good, but they need things to go right. The Broncos still have a soft as butter O-line, but they still manage to put points on the board. If the Broncos face the Jaguars, for example, in the playoffs, it's probably an early exit. The Jaguars' problem, they keep fielding their backups. They exited the postseason last season having not started their starters, and they started this season by playing their starters in week 1 as well. If they manage to field a full-strength team, they can go far. Right, the challengers. As you've noticed, by the way, all of the teams are alphabetical within their tier. I've not actually put them in any sort of order. The challengers, if I had to list them, it would probably be Packers, Lions, and then Ravens. The simple reason being that the Lions or the Packers is more likely to be in the Super Bowl than the Ravens, because the Ravens simply have to go through the Titans. Presumably through Tennessee as well. And the Titans have only lost 4 times at home in 3 seasons, and that's including the postseason. I have the Packers more likely to go through over the Lions in the postseason, simply because the Lions just don't turn up in the postseason. The Lions are 2-3 in 3 seasons, as well as the fact that they don't seem to beat the Packers at home. Every time they've played at home, except for this season and 2 seasons ago, the Packers have come away with a win in Detroit. So if the postseason goes through Detroit and Packers have to travel to Detroit, I don't expect the Lions to go through that game. Then going back to the Ravens, the only way they can get through Tennessee is if they make it to the playoffs in the first place. But their Browns are on their heels, and that's going to be a long division season for them. And we're going to finish off with the 2-time champs, in a league of their own, essentially. There's a reason they're in a league of their own. Nothing much needs to be said. 2 rings in 3 seasons. They sit at the top for a reason. They're already 3-0. They don't look like they're going to be slowing down anytime soon. Anything less than a 13-win season would probably be considered a bit of a disappointment if I had to be strict. But yeah, that sees the end of the tiers. It's I'll repeat, this is only the likelihood that they're going to win a ring. So I don't know what people's opinions are on that.
Let's throw it straight open, Robbie. Let's bring in the next guest on the show. One of the guys who put in the challenges here, Zach from the Green Bay Packers. Zach, what's your opinion of this breakdown?
Yeah, hey, I think it's all looking pretty good from my opinion. I think the first thing I want to point out is I know that the Colts started 1-2. I think I would have to switch the Colts and the Jags on my list. The Colts had a tough 3-point loss to the Titans for one of their losses, and then they split with the Jags. Those teams are neck and neck, but I still go back to how I kind of saw them at the start of the season. I have the Colts maybe a tad above the Jags. And then Cowboys a little high for my liking. I think the Giants will still come out of that division. I don't really agree with having two teams in the playoff tier coming from the NFC East. So I would probably knock the Cowboys down one from my viewpoint. And then maybe switch them with the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals are still going to be the class of the NFC West. They have a new GM, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I still think they're going to get in the playoffs. And then just to hit on the Panthers, at the beginning of the season, I liked them. Maybe with the Broncos right below the Lions and Packers and Ravens. I still think I would put them there. I'm still a little worried about their offense. I think they had a pretty bad showing. What was it? Against the only scoring 10 points versus the Bucks. So if they can figure out their offense, I think they'll be just fine. But that does worry me a little bit. But other than that, I think I agree with a lot of what Rob hit on. So I think that's all I have to kind of go over as changes.
Okay, great, Zach. Great to get your opinion on that. Let's pull it back over to our final guest on the show, the one who's sitting proudly atop, probably holding his banner in hand at the moment, and that is Josh from the Titans. Josh, give us your view on this.
Well, first off, I want to thank Rob for finally putting a voice to the face and making this, because I mean, with him and our other GM that's on, just the amount of work you guys have come together to like put these tiers and these rankings for us. I just really appreciate that, because it makes the league really fun, and it's really interesting to kind of look at other people's viewpoints and have them visualize as well. So just want to just stop for a moment and thank you guys for that. As I've been looking at it, I want to say I agree with the first change that he pointed out. I would want to kind of flip flop the Colts and the Jags as well. I'm kind of curious about the Jaguars' offense. I see that they're winning with the new quarterback, and they benched RG3, but I still kind of think he is their best quarterback. But that's maybe it's my bias, because I have a preference for running quarterbacks. But I think that team's offense was better in the past, and I think that they're coming. I don't know. I think the Colts are going to snap forward a little bit, and their game against me, I think, is kind of indicative of the potential that's there. I think they had a really good chance of taking that, and I might have only won that because I'm at home. Some of the other tiers that I've been looking at, I agree as well that I don't think two teams from the NFC East, both being playoff contending teams, I think that team, that division is only going to have one team that comes out of it. I think that when they hit the harder stretches of their schedule, that we're going to really see some of the divisions get beat up on by some of the teams that are routinely getting 13, 14, 15 wins. They haven't hit those stretches yet. So that is yet to come. I'm really curious about how Buffalo performs this year. I just don't really know where to put them on this at all, because that team still managed to win games without actual GM at all. And I think that Toasty, having sat around and actually gotten to watch the league and actually kind of talking with him in other conversation, I think he has a good idea of how to play a little bit better. So that team does have some talent on it, even though it really lacks depth. And I think if they lose maybe two players, they may not even be able to field entire rosters. So that's going to be curious too. But overall, I actually just thought it was just a really good ranking, and I pretty much agreed with the majority of it. Maybe the Raiders should be higher on there. The Dolphins have played the Patriots twice, and I think that might make their team a bit misleading. But Jamal Charles is a fantastic player, so that might just be me putting my foot in my mouth later. I hope I don't play them. I can't think of it offhand off the top of my head right now. But overall, I think I'm going to throw it back because I think this is a really good ranking, and I appreciate it. And I know I'm at the top, but and 13 wins is what you said you would strictly say for me, Rob. But my schedule is not one that's conducive towards 13 wins. I think that my division is going to really, really beat itself apart, and I think that we're going to see more splits than you guys think. I think that my division having really good GMs, we know how to adjust for each other for the next game. Like I kind of had an idea of how to play the Texans the second time I played them, and I think the fact that I went from not being able to score a touchdown to dropping 41 on them is probably a result of that. So I think whenever any of the GMs who've been here for a while play each other this year, especially, I think that the talent level and the parity and knowledge of the game of it being a new engine is going to make the matchups a lot more interesting. I think we're going to see a lot more upsets this year. But that's kind of my thoughts going forward. Someone can take over if they want.
Okay, great stuff. I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here as well. I'm not going to necessarily repeat some of the things you may have observed that I agree with. I'm going to suggest that we should have another tier in here. And the tier is going to sit between playoffs but no ring and flawed but dangerous. And I would like to name that tier early season overhyped. And I'm going to throw 2 teams in there, and that is the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins. Both 3-0. Both, I think, are probably looking better than they actually appear at this moment in time, and I expect them to sit down. But if I was a fan of those teams, and I'm thinking in terms of championship, I've got a 3-0 start. I'm looking good. I'm sitting pretty. I'm likely going to be, or likely going to be a playoff team. I'm doing better than some of these guys that are above in this tier system. So that would be my opinion there. I mean, that's one thing I would say. And the other thing I would say is I would swap Carolina and Tampa Bay around. I think Tampa Bay are a better all-round team, better balanced offense, better better efficiency there. They actually have some wide receivers. Carolina do not have any decent wide receivers this note, and they're going to be heavily relying on some of those old veteran defensive players. And we don't know with the Defenders whether they might break down with age or be more susceptible to injuries. We just don't know that yet. So I would skip those 2 rounds. And that would be my immediate observation of this one. But I'm gonna toss it back to the creator of this, Robbie. Robbie, you've heard from all 3 of us now. Do you want to throw anything else into the hat for this?
Yeah, sure. Right. I took note of your changes, and they will be considered for future tiers. Right. I agree with Cowboys possibly being lower. It's just that their GM isn't new with the Pro League. However, he's been around the sim leagues for a while. So, and he's also active in the football one. So he's not starting from scratch. So, considering that I don't think the second wild card out of the NFC won't be more than 8 to 9 wins, that is possibly a number of wins that 2 teams in the NFC East could reach. Right. From then on, the reason I didn't put the Cardinals higher than where they are is simply because the teams that they will likely have to face off against are teams that can counter their strength. So if they face the Packers or the Lions, both have the secondaries to eliminate their main threat, which is their passing game. Then going to both of you said flipping the Jags and the Colts. On paper, I would agree. However, I've seen the Jags challenge for the division. I've not seen the Colts do that yet. So I'm less willing to put the Colts higher than the Jaguars because I've seen the Jags push the Titans all the way. I haven't seen the Colts do that yet. If after 5 or 6 weeks the Colts are still pushing, then we could consider putting them into the same tier, but I don't think they're ready to be higher than the Jags at this moment in time. And then finally, with regards to the Tampa Bay with Carolina that Chris said, along the same lines, I've seen Carolina push the Saints last season to the division. I've not seen the Bucks push Carolina or the Saints to a division yet. So this is more sort of I've seen the Panthers and Jags what they can do. I've not seen what the Colts and the Bucks be able to do yet. Only what's on paper. So those are the reasons that those tiers are like that.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Robbie. I think, Josh, did you want to jump in with a response to that? Oh, I believe we may have lost Josh on the pod. I will grab him back. He disappeared again. Josh, you had a response, I think, and then you disappeared like a ghost. What's your views on that Robbie summary there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Type in the chat at the top. You should hit the X to exit the chat, and I hit back. So, those things happen. My reply was essentially that I think that when I think about it more, I think that it's not so much I want the Jags and the Colts flipped so much as I want the Colts moved up, because I think that they both deserve to be in the things we need things to do to go right category. Because the thing they need to go right is essentially for me to lose. If I lose, like, they're going to take the division, and I think that either one of those teams have the capability of winning from there. So, they only really need one thing to go right. So I think that both of them deserve to go up. I think that my division really does deserve to have two teams that make the playoffs. I think that we just have a really, really strong and competitive division. Again, with the Giants and the Cowboys, I don't know. I still just have mixed feelings about that. So, we can debate that another time. But I just wanted to get that part out, because I really think that I think that maybe we're doing both of those teams a disservice the way we're debating them. And the Jags and the Colts, I think, are both like really strong teams. The Colts do, I agree with Rob, have something to figure out though. Jed is making the transition from the college team to the pro team, and he's still figuring out playbooks and stuff like that. Whereas, as you said, the Jags have, already set a marker in the sand. They've taken the division from me before, and I've gotten it back by almost just a single game, I think, after that. So, I do agree there that, they've already set the standard for what they're going to do. And if you go and look at their schedule, they, beating the Texans and the Colts, and they split with them. So they are in that realm. They're almost, I would say they're more equal than one being over the other. But if I had to pick one over the other, I guess I still kind of would lean Jags. So I see where you're coming from there. And I just wanted to throw that in.
Okay, great stuff. And I think that brings the end of the show to a close with the first episode of our CSFL Ring Tiers. I'm sure we'll be back towards the trade deadline with another episode of this to give you a quick lowdown of where possibly we see teams stacking up, what they might need to do, where their rest of their season is going. But thanks very much to our guests, Zach, Robbie and Josh, for turning up. And if you have any comments or anything, suggestions, views, feel free to chuck them in our Discord chat. Let's try and get a discussion going about this early season that we've seen so far. And we'll be back with another episode in the future.